living toy must enjoy our contests, for it continues to play.
And play we shall, Maven. Play we shall. Hey guys, it's Gryph. You may already be familiar with the non-crit version of this build, link to the written guide in the description below, but today we're going to go over Phantasmal Cremation, the crit edition. In this video, we're going to go over the build and the changes that I've made to facilitate going crits. And why would we want to go crits? Because damage! I figured out that I could skyrocket my DPS without actually giving up much. You know, other than exalted orbs. Additionally, in this video, I will discuss on how to go about crafting the pseudo 8-link helmet, a budget version of it, as well as the Unearth gloves that are being used for the various corpse life scaling builds. It should be noted that this is not a build guide, but rather an overview of the changes made to the original build for those who wish to take Phantasmal Cremation a few steps further. This is not at all budget friendly. If you already have the non-crit version put together, you're looking at upwards of 70 to 100 exalts of investment to go crit to this extent. Of course, this can be done for far less if you're okay with maybe 50 to 70% of my current damage. And with that out of the way, let's get into it. But first, if you like this sort of content from me, then help me appease the algorithm gods by hitting those like and subscribe buttons and leave a comment below. Your offerings are appreciated. On to the content! Alrighty, first things first, let's take a quick look at what lets us go for crit. And I'm not going to cover everything on this character, only the changes to go for crit on the cremation build. The path of building is in the description below, so peruse it at your own convenience. The main pieces I want to focus on are the helmet, the boots, the chest, and the jewels in the tree. Okay, so we'll talk about how to craft the helmet later in the video. You can check the timestamps for that. But quickly, it's an 8-link helmet. The most important stat here is the socketed spells have plus 2% to critical strike chance. This is largely what enables the crit part of cremation. This is an expensive craft. Again, more on that later. So corpse explosions are very limited in their crit scaling since they do not count as spell damage. This means things like increased critical strike chance on the tree or on your weapons does not work. So I can't take arcane potency. It doesn't do anything. That also includes influence modifiers like a hunter chest with elevated with plus 2% critical strike chance, base crit. That doesn't work for corpse skills. Now, the helmet mod does still work because it affects the skill specifically. Is a socketed spell has the crit chance, so that includes the corpse explosion side of it as well. As for the rest of the helmet, it's all just damage. The more of these stats you have, the more damage you'll have. Hypothermia, 30% more elemental damage, and conk effect just add more and more damage, making this an 8-link helmet. Moving on, the next linchpin of the build are the boots. Specifically, the Searing Exarch mod drops brittle ground while moving, lasting X seconds. Mine lasts 5 seconds because I hit it with a couple orbs of domination. But if you use Grand Searing the Grand Eldritch Embers, you'll get the 4 seconds, and that is Gucci. You can use that. That's totally fine. So yeah, you'll see me shield charge through bosses or walking around in little circles. If you shield charge, you'll see it actually leaves the brittle ground behind, right? Or walk around a little circle. This is what it looks like. But yeah, and this is for 5% base crit chance, which I don't know if you realize this, is massive. It's very hard, though not impossible, to cap your critical strike chance without this effect. It is possible, but this just feels like cheating. Worth noting is that it does replace the increased Bone Offering Searing Exarch mod. So keep that in mind. You do lose some block chance because of that. Now, part of what I did for the changes, past the boots, right, is I switched to a 6-link aura setup with Skin of the Lords that has Unwavering Stance. Because I gained some sockets by switching my main skill into the helmet, this is now possible. Now, technically you don't need to do this, but technically I wanted Unwavering Stance. I wanted to be stun immune without having to rely on Jewels or Brine King or anything like that. So I ended up going with this because it wasn't too expensive. This was still like 15 exalts for this chest. 4 blue, 1 green, 1 red. This isn't your only option for colors, but it was actually the cheapest one and the most effective for the build. So obviously I went with it. We call that a no-brainer. The +2 to the level of socketed gems also makes Enlighten more effective for helping you reserve all your auras. Right? I've got my level 4 Enlighten. And I've got Purity of Elements, Discipline, Determination, Purity of Ice, and Tempest Shield all linked in my chest. Getting the levels on the auras is also just very nice for extra armor, energy shield, etc. And lastly, the 100% increased global defenses does just make sure we stay at a nice healthy energy shield pool and gives us a ton of armor. A fairly expensive but excellent choice. If you forego the Unwavering Stance, it is technically a lot cheaper, as you can just get kind of either a throwaway or a useful but not as useful keystone. Right? Lastly, I want to look at the jewels. Right? So I'm using 2 cluster trees now, with large clusters that have Sadist, Prismatic Heart, and Disorienting Display. Now, Disorienting Display could also be Doriani's Lesson, and it would still have the same 2 nodes in the front. We want Prismatic Heart because we need the extra resistances for melding of the flesh, which I am still using in the crit version of this build. And then the important part here is I'm going for 4 crit clusters that have Basics of Pain and Pressure Points. Each one is Basics of Pain and Pressure Points. This gives us, what, 75% crit chance per medium cluster, for a total of 300% increased critical strike chance, which goes a long way for capping our crit chance. Combine that with, you know, just a Diamond Flask with 100% crit, and I've got another 52% crit on my Sulfur Flask, and we get to crit cap pretty easily from there. Now, I am still using a small cluster jewel with Mana Reservation Efficiency and Pure Guile, again, just to help me get all my auras in. And I am also using the Enduring Composure small cluster jewel, because endurance charges. For rare jewels, I have picked up 3 jewels with 6% or better increased maximum energy shield and triple crit multi-mods. You can go with just ES and 2 crit multi-mods or triple crit multi-mods. You know, delete one of these rows and you get a lot cheaper jewels. That said, I got the 3 of these all together for 10x total, which I didn't feel like was very bad at all. And they add a ton of damage. Alternatively, you could go for a Forbidden Flesh, Forbidden Flame combination. You can use like Heart of Destruction or Mastermind of Discord or Profane Bloom, whatever you can afford, whatever your little heart desires, You can use that instead of 2 rare jewels. You could also use Grand Spectrum jewels if you need more crit chance, right? If you have 3 Grand Spectrum jewels, you can get like 75% crit chance per jewel. You can get, you know, maybe you don't need 225% crit chance, so you can get 2 with crit chance and maybe 1 with resistances. You know, mix and match how you feel the need, but that is also an option available. As for the Watcher's Eye, that is important. So with the Watcher's Eye, I would go for the chance to attack, the chance to block attack damage while affected by determination, and non-channeling skills have -10 to total mana cost while affected by clarity. I happen to be lucky and find one that also had the spell block with discipline, which saves me some points, right? Because I could pick up 8% spell block here for 2 points. My Aegis Aurora happens to have 5% chance to block spell damage, which also helps. Thanks to my lovely wife for double corrupting this for me. She's a doll. Oh. And then just looking at the tree, you can see that we have made some changes. I've basically cut out the entire upper middle section of the tree where I had taken some damage nodes. And it's really just done so that I can do the dual cluster setup. I've taken some crit multi here. And that's basically it. One thing you can do is you can replace these 5 points here. If you need a little more resistance, you can come and take Ash, Frost, and Storm, which gives you 6% all res on the way. It's the same number of points, and it's like slightly less damage if you go here. So that is something to keep in mind. And, oh, and then the one item that I haven't gotten yet, but would be a nice upgrade, is a Bottled Faith. I am just using a Sulfur Flask right now that has some crit chance on it. I haven't bought one yet. I tend to just try to find one, but that's a me thing. It would add some more crit chance, you know, while Assassin's Mark's not up and stuff like that. And it would add more damage, which is always nice. As far as skills are concerned, the only things that I have that you wouldn't have on the non-crit version, I do have Assassin's Mark with Mark on Hit. I'm using Divergent because it just adds a little more damage. And I'm using a Precision Aura. That's about it. Everything else is something that I would use on the non-crit version with no problems. You could ignore the implicit on my wand. I'm literally recycling this from my Ignite build. I didn't feel like making a new one, so I'm missing a little bit of damage there. Polaric Devastation. Turns out it's just a really powerful ring. Gives a lot of damage. It's like 20% more damage. And it has some resists, some crit chance. It's just a good ring. Do you need to use it? Absolutely not. You can use another rare ring if you want to. That's fine. That basically wraps it up. Everything else, pretty generic. I did change the anoint on this from Charisma to Heart of Flame. If you don't have a level 4 Enlighten, you probably still need to use Charisma. And that wraps up the crit review. And moving on to the crafting section. So we want to make an 8-link helmet with concentrated effect, hypothermia, 30% more elemental damage, and the socketed spells have critical strike chance. How in the world do we start this process? How do we get from start to finish? That's what we're going to find out. First things first, you gotta buy a base. Buy a base with Unearth Spawns Corpses with +5 level. Just go to your trade and look for a Hubris Circlet with the enchant. They're like 2.5 to 3 exalts for an item level 86 base. One thing you do not want to do not buy one that has the new Eldritch influences, because you won't be able to work with that. So, okay, you bought your base. Now what? You hit it with an influenced exalted orb. So like a Crusader, a Warlord, Redeemer, or Hunter's exalted orb. Whatever's the cheapest one. You hit it. The next thing you do is you either have to farm some harvests, or buy them off a TFT. There's a mod that's Reforge a rare or randomizes the influence on a rare, and it reforges it or whatever. So you have to hit it until you get Elder or Shaper. And once you've done that, you then take, whatever you don't have. So if you have a Shaper base, you get an Elder helmet, you buy an Awakener's orb, and then you smush them together, right? You use the Awakener's orb on the Elder helmet, click the Elder helmet first, then you click on your Hubris Circlet, which is the Shaper influenced item, the base you want to keep, and now you have a Shaper, Elder, influenced base with +5 to Unearth. And now we can start the actual crafting process. Let's take a look at Craft of Exile. So the first thing we want to do is we want to get Hypothermia support with the 30% more elemental damage. There are two ways to do this. The most obvious one is to use Horror Essences. And that's what that 30% more elemental damage with socketed skills comes from, is the Horror Essence. Now, if you go for tier 3 or better, so level 16, 18, or 20 on the Hypothermia, it'll take you an average of 24. Now, these are like 5 to 1x, so it's pretty expensive to do it this way. Not that it's cheap to do it the other way. This is how I actually hit it because I got frustrated trying to do it the other way. But you can do it the other way, which we'll talk about now. So the other way is to use fossils, and you use frigid and glyphic. And that will take an average of 16 tries. So what happens is glyphic fossils roll a random corrupted essence modifier. So there's a 1 in 4 chance that you will get the 30% more elemental damage when you roll it. And then using frigid fossils gives you a very high likelihood of hitting Hypothermia, which is like a 1 in 4. Combine that with the glyphic fossil, gives you about a 1 in 16 chance of hitting. Glyphic fossils are cheaper-ish than Horror Essences. They are just a little bit more annoying to buy. I threw a bunch of these at the helmet. I never got it. I never got what I needed. I ended up switching to the Horror Essences and got it on the first one I used. So, that's my anecdotal evidence for you. So what you do from there, we'll go to the emulator here. We'll use calculator settings, Hubris Circlet. It is Elder, Shaper. If we just go click on Essences, click on Horror, you can sit here and oh my goodness, look at that conch effect. And it's going to take a while to hit it this way. It is the unfortunate reality, but you can still do it. And you just keep doing it. Keep clicking, click, 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 click. Eventually get lucky, get frustrated, quit, etc. If I hit this, I might consider annulling. Here, let's annul. Oh, look at that. Easy. So if this ever happened to you, that's probably worth the chance. So you'd suffixes cannot be changed. Go to harvest, reforge, cold. You're not really that likely to hit it, but you could hit Hypothermia in theory. It's probably not worth it. Oh my god. Yeah, there you go. There's the helmet's done. Done. It's Dunsky. Anyways, so that's one thing you can do if you happen to hit it before that. But realistically, what's going to happen? I'm gonna just go ahead and go. Can I go back to the Hypothermia? No. Let's go back to the Hypothermia. Where you at? Yeah, it's never gonna happen, right? There it is, Hypothermia. So what will happen, most likely, is you'll end up with the 30% more elemental damage and the Hypothermia. either through the use of glyphic fossils plus frigid fossils or spamming with horror essences. Now, if you ever hit this and you have a filled suffix, you just have to try to annul it off. There's really nothing else you can do. And if you hit one of these two, you just have to keep trying. Now, once you're at this point, you have a 50% chance to get attack or spell crit. You want the spell crit. So what we do is we do this. Prefixes cannot be changed. That's suffixes. Yeah, suffixes cannot be changed. Sorry. We add the suffixes cannot be changed. And then we reforge critical from harvest. And these are really easy to farm up on your own if you don't want to go to TFT. I farmed them up on my own because these are very common. And then you're going to hit it with that, and it is a 50% chance to get your spell crit. And here we hit the tier 1 increased critical strike chance for spells. That is the easy part. Now, if you wanted to do this as a budget helmet, this is where you'd stop. If you were doing this intentionally as a budget helmet, you would not add the Elder Influence. You would just get your helmet to Shaper Influence, and then you'd go through these steps with the Horror Essences or the Fossils to get the Hypothermia and the 30% more elemental damage. And then you could just lock your suffixes, Reforge Crit, and you will get Spell Crit. It is guaranteed if you do not have the Elder Influence. Okay? So that is the budget version of this of the helmet that I am wearing. It does not have concentrated effects, which does add like 40% more damage. 100% worth it if you're willing to invest in the time and energy and exalted orbs to get it. It's expensive though. But yeah, you could just stop there and that's enough to, you know, go crit and do your thing. So you have this helmet the way it is now. Well, now what? Well, now you sell your soul to TFT and just you harvest, craft, reforge, keeping suffixes over and over and over and over again. I will tell you, I did this about 40 times before I got concentrated effect now. So we got that in, how many times was that? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15, 17, I don't know. Less than 20. But that would cost you like 20x to do. From there, you could just like Leo Slam or try your hand at an Aisling to fill in your other two prefixes. Add some energy shield and then you're done. And that's it. That's the helmet. But you could spend a lot of time. You can get increased area of effect as well, which doesn't add damage, but it's not like it's terrible. You could spend a lot of time just hitting this with these reforges. And these are expensive. They are roughly 1 to 1.5. I just hit it twice in a row. That's funny. 1 to 1.5 exalts each per attempt. I was paying 1x to 1.3x, depending if people had like multiple. Some people, they farm them, they get like 3 in one harvest, or they save them up till they have a few of them and then sell them. But yeah, that's how you make the helmet. That's it. It's expensive. It's annoying. If you don't want to go for conk effect, it's really a lot simpler to make a good helmet because there's no guessing in this part, right? There's no gambling on the socket of spells have increased critical strike chance. You might not get tier 1, but you'll always hit it if it's just a shaper base. If it's elder base 2, you have a 50% chance to hit attack crit. So just keep that in mind. That's how the helmet is made. It's expensive. Mine cost me roughly 60 exalts to craft it myself. So just know what you're getting into and you'll be fine. All right, and that wraps it up for the helmet craft. And let's move on to the gloves. All right, let's craft some gloves. We want on our gloves +1 strength gems, +1 dexterity gems, +2 to level of socketed AoE or socketed projectile gems, and then you'll typically round it off with a +1 to socketed of the other one that you're missing, either AoE or projectile, right? I put energy shield on mine because I'm able to reach level 30 on Earth because I'm using a +2 weapon and I wanted the extra energy shield. But this is another example of a pair of +5 gloves. So how do we make these? It's actually really straightforward. The hardest part about making these is actually picking your base. If you want to have a really, really good base, like, you know, fractured life or fractured energy shield. I've seen some people with fractured dexterity. That's when it gets really difficult and very expensive. When you want to start manipulating your eldritch influences, maybe you want to get the +2 to maximum cold res, it gets a bit harder when you start doing that stuff. I'm not going to go into the nuances of all of that. Just look up Orbs of Conflict. That's all I got to say. And you need tier 5 for the +2% to max cold res, or tier 2 is what it is, sorry. Okay, so this is a really straightforward process. You use fossils, 4 sockets. Look, where did I put it? I put it somewhere. Uh-oh, there it is. Ready? I've got a base. I got the fossil, the resonator. I've got a set of fossils. It takes faceted, corroded, pristine, and dense fossils. This is what you need. And that's it. It's actually really easy. So we're just going to socket this in the off chance that I actually hit it on this base while recording, because that'd be cool. So I have to regal this first. Make it rare. And we'll just hit it. I can almost guarantee I won't hit it on the first try. Yeah, there you go. RIP. But that's okay. Let's take a look at Craft of Exile, get some stats on this. So if you're using a high item level base, you know, because you have a cool fractured pair of gloves and you have infinite money, you're looking at a roughly 11 tries to hit. +1 strength and +1 dexterity, because that's what we're starting with. We want to get the suffixes first. So let's go over to our emulator. Again, I got to regal this, make it rare. Hit it with the fossils. Let's see, pristine, faceted, dense, and corroded. All right. On average, 11 tries. So we've got Dex Intelligence, Intelligence Strength, Intelligence Dexterity. Again, there you go. We got it in like 3 tries. This has an open suffix, which is a little bit awkward, actually. But you get your Strength and Dexterity. I would honestly probably just Leo Slam or Exalt Slam that suffix. Just try to get something useful. You're just like slap some. Oop. Use the bench, slap something on the prefix slot just to fill up the prefix. And then go ahead and hit it with like an Exalt. There you go. A little bit of cold res. That's something, right? The point is you want to have your suffixes filled to do the next part. So once you're at this point, you hit it with a suffixes cannot be changed. Suffixes cannot be changed. Come on. Thank you. You hit it with a suffixes cannot be changed. And then you hit it with a Veiled Chaos Orb. You've got an available veiled prefix. Now this next part is very important. You want to block a mod. And the mod you want to block is one of these conversion mods, because if you have one, the others cannot spawn. And they have the highest weight among mods that you can unveil. So you block a conversion mod and then you unveil. And look at that. First try. Now this part can take 3, 4, 5 tries depending how bad your luck is. You'll usually spend anywhere from like 2 to 6 exalts, 8. The most I've ever spent, and I've made several pairs of these gloves, the most I've ever spent was 10x. Which isn't too bad. But you get your +2 socket AoE, and then from there you just pick whatever prefix you wanted. You know, if you're playing CI like me, you know, you just remove that and craft some energy shield. Now you have really high ES gloves, or if you need that extra level, you can just, you know, add in the +1 socketed projectile. Bada bing, bada boom, and you're done. Easy, right? Go ahead and figure out, what stuff you want here. You just kind of hit this until you get like what you want. Which for the Searing Exarch, if you're doing the cremation build, you want plus max cold resistance, which apparently will never hit, but that's okay. You get the idea. You just hit it and hit it with these things until you get what you want. If you're not going for the +2% max cold res, you can use, greater or lesser, because those are all going to be 1%. Oh, there it was. Undo. There you go. +1 max cold res, and then for the Ickers, you want the fire exposure. It's just very convenient, right? And that's how you make the gloves. It's really, really not hard. It's a little RNG because if you're using it on a good base, it's going to be expensive. These, especially like the fractured bases, they're kind of expensive. 4, 5, 6 exalts for a fractured energy shield base. Now, Big Ducks pointed this out, and this is how he made his gloves. He went with a low item level pair of gloves. So let's go ahead, restart this. Create a new item. We want gloves. We'll go ahead with intelligence gloves, wool gloves, and like item level 2. Like literally just roll a new character, go to town, buy a pair of gloves from Hillock. And you might think, well, you can't get 4 sockets on low level gloves because they're not high enough item level. You can use the bench to override that. So if you go to your crafting bench and you look at sockets, you can override low item level sockets by using the bench. So it's totally fine to do it this way. No worries. Okay, so we do that, proceed, and then again, just go with the fossil, elk. Go with the fossils, and now for this, it's literally like a 50% chance. Look at that, all 3, boom, easy, done. Okay, let's just like hit this a few more times, just kind of get an idea. I mean, look at how often it hits just like all 3 of them, right? So doing it this way is a lot cheaper on this initial crafting process. Mind you, you're just going to have like no energy shield on your gloves. Be that as it may, it's not bad. If you're like just getting started on the build and you've spent all of your money and exalts on cremation and Unearth because they're ridiculously expensive, but you still need a good pair of gloves, you don't have to spend 20 exalts making a pair of gloves. You can spend like 3, 4, maybe 6, right? You can get started with just this, and then you get a couple more exalts, and you do the, hey, suffixes cannot be changed, Vel de Chaos Orb. And you block it, and you unveil it, and you don't hit it, so you got to do it again, right? Ugh, pain. Unveil, pain. So that's 2 times, that's 4x. There you go, the projectiles, and then you finish it off with the other +1 socketed AoE, just like that, and then you're done. So that's how you do the budget version of it. It really just makes the first part a lot simpler, but you will lose a lot of energy shield, potentially some like nice dexterity, that kind of stuff. But that's really all there is to it. That's how you craft the gloves. It's very straightforward, very easy. Again, if you're doing this on a high item level base, it is a 1 in 11 chance to getting strength and dex, and can be very frustrating. So make sure you have appropriate funds to get this going. And that's going to be a wrap for the glove crafting section. All right, that's all she wrote. But hey, if you made it this far, thank you for watching. This has been one of the most satisfying builds that I have played in a long time. It's a bit unfortunate that the old quality skill gems are as expensive as they are, but you know, it is what it is. Hopefully you found this video informative, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment below or join our Discord. There's a link to that down there too. And well, now that my ramblings have come to an end, let's go ahead and insert a catchy phrase here and peace out.